The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Margaret Collins, the formidable CEO of a billion-dollar tech company, stepped inside with her usual air of command. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as if announcing her presence to the world, even in that small, confined space. She was a woman who carried authority like a second skin, sharp, precise, intimidating to most. But this morning, something unusual caught her attention. Inside the elevator stood a little boy, no older than 8, holding a mop bucket almost too big for his tiny hands. His clothes were slightly worn, his shoes scuffed, but his wide brown eyes were alert, almost too mature for his age. Beside him, leaning against the wall, was his father, the janitor she had seen in the building many times before. As Margaret entered, she gave the man a curt nod, the kind she gave to people she didn't expect to exchange words with. She turned to press the button for the 40th floor, but before she could, the boy tugged at his father's sleeve and whispered something. Then, the boy looked straight at her and said clearly, firmly, "Don't talk." Margaret froze, her finger hovering over the button. The elevator doors slid shut, locking them inside. The silence was immediate, heavy. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. She wasn't used to being told what to do, especially by a child. The janitor looked horrified. I'm so sorry, ma'am. He didn't mean." But the boy interrupted. "No. Please, don't talk." His little voice carried urgency, almost pleading. Margaret, stunned, lowered her hand. Something in his eyes stopped her from snapping back. Something raw, desperate, and unusual. She found herself obeying, though she didn't know why. The elevator began its slow ascent. Margaret tried to study the boy without making it obvious. He was gripping his father's hand tightly, as if holding onto it for dear life. His small chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, his other hand clenched around a worn-out teddy bear missing one ear. Seconds ticked by in silence, but it wasn't the kind of silence Margaret was accustomed to in her world of corporate negotiations and high-stakes meetings. This silence was fragile. It felt like the wrong word could shatter something important. At the 10th floor, the elevator jolted slightly. The boy flinched. His father bent down quickly, murmuring something Margaret couldn't hear. The boy nodded, eyes shut tight, as though bracing himself. Margaret's instinct was to ask what was wrong. But the boy's words replayed in her head, "Don't talk." Against her nature, she stayed quiet. The elevator carried on. Margaret's mind wandered, something rare for her. She remembered her own childhood, far from glamorous. Before she became Margaret Collins, CEO, she had been Maggie, the daughter of a struggling single mother who cleaned houses for a living. She remembered standing in rooms where she was invisible, holding back words because she didn't belong. Something about this boy, his quiet bravery, his insistence, was stirring a long-buried part of her. At the 20th floor, the boy suddenly pressed his face into his father's jacket. Margaret noticed his small shoulders trembling. His father stroked his hair, whispering, "It's okay, buddy. Just a little more." The teddy bear slipped from the boy's grip and landed near Margaret's feet. Instinctively, she bent down, picked it up, and handed it back. Their eyes met, hers questioning, his shimmering with tears he refused to let fall. That's when she saw it. A faint, pale scar running across his throat, partially hidden by his collar. Her heart gave a strange lurch. The elevator continued. By now, Margaret wasn't just curious, she was unsettled. She couldn't stop thinking about the scar, the silence, the plea. Finally, at the 30th floor, the boy's father sighed heavily. He looked at her, guilt etched on his face. "Ma'am, I know this is strange. I know my son shouldn't have spoken to you like that. But, he just had throat surgery. He can't handle sudden noise right now. The doctor said too much talking, especially in enclosed places, can trigger panic attacks." The boy clung tighter to his father's hand. Margaret blinked, her tough exterior faltering. "Oh," she whispered, almost to herself. Suddenly, the command, "Don't talk," wasn't rude. It was survival. The silence in the elevator shifted. It was no longer uncomfortable. It was protective. Shared. Margaret glanced at the boy again, softer this time. He wasn't just a janitor's son. He was a fighter, holding on despite fear, despite scars. And for the first time in years, Margaret felt something she hadn't felt in boardrooms or corner offices: humility. At the 38th floor, the elevator shuddered suddenly, stopping for a brief second. The boy gasped, his small body tensing. His father crouched, whispering reassurances. Margaret, without thinking, took a step closer. She crouched down too, lowering herself to the boy's level. Slowly, gently, she placed a hand over her own lips and gave him a small nod. "A promise, I won't speak." His wide eyes studied her, and for the first time, a tiny flicker of trust appeared in them. He lifted his teddy bear slightly, as if showing it to her. It was such a small gesture, but it hit Margaret like a tidal wave. She had spent years surrounded by luxury, power, and respect, but this silent exchange with a frightened child felt more profound than any corporate victory she had ever achieved. Finally, the elevator reached the 40th floor. The doors slid open with a soft ding. Margaret straightened, smoothing her jacket, slipping back into the role of CEO. But inside, something had shifted. Before stepping out, she turned back to the boy and his father. She wanted to say something, anything. Words of comfort, encouragement, kindness. But she remembered his plea. So instead, she simply placed a hand over her heart and gave a small bow of her head. The boy's lips curved into the faintest, most fragile smile. And in that moment, Margaret realized she didn't need to speak at all. Sometimes, the deepest conversations happen in silence. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Margaret felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. For years, she had thought her power came from her voice, her authority, her presence in boardrooms. But today, an 8-year-old boy reminded her of something far greater, that sometimes, true strength lies in compassion. And it was a lesson she would never forget.